It's the Paul Finebaum Show. And now, Paul Finebaum.
For the third day in a row, the big bad voice man has lied to America. It is not the Paul Finebaum Show. It is Booger and Burns taking over for the third day in a row for Mr. Paul Finebaum. I am Peter Burns, studio anchor for the SEC Network. He is Booger McFarlane. You can follow him on Twitter at SEC Booger and follow myself at Peter Burns ESPN. Jam-packed show today. Going to have some fun. It's the last day. It's like the last day of school for us, Boog. So we can have a good little time, stretch the legs a little bit. You good with that? We okay?
I'm great with it, man. Let's just not try to tear the place up because the last 2 days have been pretty decent. Let's just try not to ruin our work so far.
We're 3 under, and we're just hoping to stay over right at even par. We're just hoping not to fire like an 84 and start shanking it all over the map.
3 wood off every tee. Let's shoot to the middle of the green. Let's not go with flags. You know how we do it.
We're playing 18 pars, baby, all day long. That's what we'll take. Here's what we got on tap today. Lance Zierlein of NFL Network's going to join us. A lot of these teams in the SEC were hit hard by the NFL draft, as always. It's not a big shocker. But what teams are the scouts and what games are scouts right now booking flights for in the SEC to say these guys are going to play at the next level? We'll have him at 3:15. Tony Barnhart going to join us, Mr. College Football, at 4 p.m. We'll talk a little about SEC Media Days. Trent Dilfer will join us in the 5 o'clock Eastern hour. He's one of the head coaches of Elite 11. That's the big quarterback camp that's going on right now. Some big SEC recruits and current players, including Josh Dobbs, is up there. So we'll hear from him. We might get the big swagoo in here a little bit later because, anytime you can get the big swagoo here on the show, my goodness, you got to end up and going ahead and putting him on. 855-242-7285 is the number. That's 855-242-PAUL. And I want to start with this because, as many of you guys know, we had some great Twitter response from this yesterday and some great phone calls. The legend, the snake, Kenny Stabler, passed away yesterday at the age of 69, and Paul is, with him being on vacation, we really wanted to get kind of an idea from him what Kenny Stabler meant, not only just to Alabama fans, not just to SEC fans, but just basically football fans because of his career. And Paul had this quote earlier, and I'm going to read it verbatim. This is from Paul Finebaum on Kenny Stabler. It says, "I think in many ways he was one of the most misunderstood players in the history of Alabama because of what happened perhaps after he left. If you're studying Alabama history, I think Kenny Stabler would be on the Mount Rushmore of great Alabama players and coaches, for that matter. I think he's that important. I think what he stood for in terms of being a rebel, having always been part of his legacy, I think it hurt him badly in relation to the NFL and never-ending controversy on whether or not he should be in the Hall of Fame. But in terms of Alabama football, I think he really comes pretty quickly after Joe Namath in terms of famous and great players." And that's one of the things we're going to do today in this show as well. We invite your phone calls. It's a celebration of the life of one of the legends, of the snake, of Kenny Stabler. And I mean, just hearing the sounds as well, too. Go ahead, Dan. Give me a little bit of Kenny Stabler back in the day.
Here comes the rush. He sidesteps. Can he throw? He can't. The ball flipped forward is loose. A wild scramble. 2 seconds on the clock. Casper grabbing the ball. It is ruled a fumble. Casper is recovered in the end zone. The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most zany, unbelievable, absolutely impossible dream of a play. Madden is on the field. He wants to know if it's real. They said, yes, get your big butt out of here. He does. There's nothing real in the world anymore. The Raiders won the football game. The Chargers are standing, looking at each other. They don't believe it. Nobody believes it.
An unbelievable call. You can even hear the other guys, Boog, in the press box just going crazy because there's normally the rule there's no cheering in the press box, but you can hear it. But Kenny Stabler is just the legend, and you even heard a great anecdote this morning about Stabler back on his playing days.
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking to John McClain, and he told a story about Kenny just missed work on Monday, just didn't show up whatsoever. So Tuesday, all the reporters are gathered around. Kenny comes out of the shower, and he's sitting there naked out of the shower. He fires up a cigarette, puts his left leg over his right leg and sits back and said, all right, guys, fire away. So one of the guys said, Kenny, we noticed you didn't show up to work yesterday and you were gone. Can you tell us where you were? And he kind of takes a drag on the cigarette and says, yesterday was Veterans Day, and as far as I know, I'm a veteran, so I didn't show up. Next question.
While probably taking the drag of the heater, just doing it the way he should, man.
I thought that was a great story because you know what? I almost wanted to try that when I was a football player. Like, man, it's Veterans Day. I've been in the league 7 years, man. Let me take a day off.
Just no sprints for me. No sprints for Booger today. And I think, and it's one of the things we saw so many, JT the Brick, who does a lot of stuff for the Oakland Raiders, and just so much outpouring. And that's when when you think of Stabler, too, you don't necessarily, he may not come up to mind like Joe Montana or some of the greatest names in the history. And I think Paul put it great. In the fact that why shouldn't it have been? Just maybe because he was a little bit rebel and marched to the beat of his own drummer. And so, you want to relive some of those moments? Absolutely, here on the Paul Finebaum Show. That's for you. 855-242-7285. And the social media question that we have today is kind of one leading us into Monday, which is the start of SEC Media Days in Birmingham. And it is, what do you want to hear? What do you wish you heard from your head coach? Because there's a lot of coach speak, right, Boog? I mean, every year it's kind of, we're going to give 110%, and, we got some great opponents, right? I mean, that's traditionally what we hear from media days, right?
Well, normally what you're going to hear, listen, we had a great offseason. Everybody got bigger, faster, and stronger. Like you've never heard a coach come to the podium and be like, you know what? Our guys are fat, they're slow, they didn't do much work this offseason. That's one thing you're not going to hear. And you know what? It's expected because you don't want to give anybody any bulletin board material. It's expected because you want to make sure that you're seen and not really heard, if you know what I mean. Because nobody wants to leave media day with a target on their back. But ultimately for us, as the media side, we get a lot of bland quotes, and so we try to come up with creative ways to get coaches to say something, and it usually never works.
Well, and we're going to try. This is what, and so we asked you guys to hit us up on the Finebaum account or at Peter Burns ESPN or at SEC Booger, hashtag SEC Wish. What do you wish your head coach would say? And I'll start off. This is what I want to hear from Gus Malzahn. Okay, Boog, because he's going on Monday. The Auburn Tigers speak on Monday. I want Gus Malzahn to say, I'm fining Will Muschamp $200,000 every time someone scores more than 30 points on us this year. That's what I want to hear. I'd love for Malzahn to say that he's fining Muschamp $200,000 out of that big contract that he's got, both from Florida, old school money, and his new school money as a D coordinator, every time that they score more than 30 points. Okay, that's some of the stuff. You got one that you want to hear from Auburn at any point? What do you want to hear from Malzahn?
Well, Malzahn is going to step up there, and we know from a defensive coordinator position that there are going to be a lot of expectations for Will Muschamp. The key for him is going to be, can he live up to those expectations? For me, I like him to step to the podium and simply say, listen, guys, Jeremy Johnson, I don't know what he's going to be. I have no idea. So for all you guys out there who say he's the second coming, I have no clue what he's going to be. And to me, that would shock a lot of people because everybody around the country is thinking Jeremy, including myself, is thinking Jeremy Johnson is about to be the second coming of Peyton Manning.
And that's the reason why everyone thinks that they're going to win the SEC West. So there it is. That's how we kicked it off. Hashtag SEC Wish. Your phone calls as well. 855-242-PAUL. We'll get right in there going in. Jim, thanks for joining Booger and Burns in on the Paul Finebaum Show.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you got me because I'm in a rush to go somewhere, but I wanted to get on with this situation. And I'm going to tell you something. That's why I stay with Paul. Because would you accommodate me and read that again to the audience? What the quote from Paul a while ago?
Yeah, quickly, it said, I think in many ways he's one of the most misunderstood players in the history of Bama because of what happened after he left. If you're studying Alabama history, I think Kenny Stabler would be on the Mount Rushmore of great Alabama players and coaches for that matter. I think it's important what he stood for, and being a rebel has always been part of his legacy, and I think it hurt him badly in relationship to the NFL and never-ending controversy on whether or not he should be in the Hall of Fame. But in terms of Alabama football, I think it comes pretty quickly after Joe Namath in terms of famous and great players. And he was speaking of Kenny Stabler.
Absolutely, Paul nailed it. And I mean, he nailed it. That's all I can tell you, man. That's perfect. I mean, that is perfect. I've talked to too many people. That's exactly the truth. Kenny didn't care about what people thought about him. I hope I'm that way. I try to be that way. He didn't worry about it. He played ball, and that's it. He didn't care after he got off the field. He did what he wanted to do. I don't say it's right, but he didn't let the society dictate to him what he did or how he acted or where he went or who he ran with, et cetera, et cetera. He did what he wanted to do. I've been a rebel. My daddy called me a rebel. I don't know if you can sense that in me, but I think Paul can. And I'm not as much like Kenny, because I ain't got the guts probably that Kenny had. But Kenny Stabler, from what I've seen on film, was the best, as good a quarterback as Joe Namath. And you've been hiding somewhere, Peter. If you said something about a while ago, I heard you say, "Oh, he might not mount up in your mind to who'd you say the other quarterback you mentioned?"
Well, I'm talking.
No, you mentioned the quarterback. Name the quarterback you mentioned a while ago.
Joe Montana. When you're talking about
in regard, yes, sir. I'm gonna tell you something. Did you hear what Madden said about him? He said, "I'll take Kenny Stabler over anybody right now," and that's what he said about Stabler on the 2-minute drill. That Stabler gave clinics on the 2-minute drill. If you watch those tapes of the old games, like I have, many games I've seen on film, he was a master of the 2-minute drill. I mean, the things he did. But let me give you an example of how famous and popular he was and is with the Oakland people, and people really nationally. You'll see that when this thing's over in regard to the accolades that come in about Kenny Stabler. This is from Tom Hanks. Have you seen his tweet today?
I did see it because I'm trying to think of where the connection was there with Hanks.
Well, he's out in California for one thing. He probably was a fan of Oakland Raiders. Let me read it to you, all right?
Go.
Tom Hanks said on a tweet last night, "Goodbye, Kenny Stabler, QB for the Oakland Raiders, who showed how cool it was to be cool under pressure. Go deep, baby. Hanks."
And I remember now quickly, Jim, before we got to let you go because we're up against the break, but I remember Tom Hanks's character, Forrest Gump, was actually in that time frame of the Kenny Stabler days. So that's exactly or Bear Bryant football too down in Bama. So that was.
Let me read you what I returned to him real quick. To Hanks, all right?
All right.
I said, Forrest Gump was the backup quarterback for Kenny Stabler, and I know that's why you played the role in the movie Forrest Gump, Hanks. Then I said, "Cool hand Kenny, right on, Hanks." And the fact, I need to say this too, and you do too. I know Paul. I don't know if Paul will or not, but there's many that will. I said, and the fact idiot voters never put Kenny in the Hall of Fame of the NFL and College Football Hall of Fame is the ugliest travesty in college and pro football.
Jim,
it is.
I think you said it the right way, my friend.
All right, thanks a lot. Y'all doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. More phone calls your way coming up, 855-242. If you want to get on here on your SEC wish, what you wish a coach would say at SEC Media Days and more on Kenny Stabler. But FSU in trouble again, a major story breaking. We'll have that on the other side. It's Booger and Burns filling in for Paul Finebaum.
Hi.
19 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to the Paul Finebaum Show. It is Booger and Burns in for the third day. I am Peter Burns of the SEC Network. He is one Booger McFarland. Hit us up on Twitter at Peter Burns ESPN or at SEC Booger. But news that we just saw come across, and we've got it confirmed, and now the man who's behind the story, some more breaking news out of Tallahassee, is Mark Schlabach is going to join us here on the Paul Finebaum Show. Booger and Burns filling in. Mark, give us the latest of the latest story that's going down in Tuscaloosa right now.
I talked to Willie Meggs, the state attorney in Tallahassee, just a while ago. Yep, he told me he's told police to prepare a probable cause warrant for the arrest of Seminoles running back Dalvin Cook, who was accused of punching a 21-year-old woman in the face several times outside of a downtown Tallahassee bar on June 23rd. It occurred about 2 a.m. the night before. former FSU quarterback DeAndre Johnson allegedly punched a woman in the face, a different woman in the face at a different bar in Tallahassee. So Cook's going to be charged with misdemeanor assault. And I've got a call. I just talked to FSU Athletic Director Stan Wilcox a little while ago. They weren't aware that a warrant was going to be issued yet.
Now, Mark, this is not the first time that Dalvin Cook of FSU down in Tallahassee has gotten in trouble. Is that correct?
Nah, he was involved in the BB gun incident last year, and he actually just completed a pretrial diversion program through the state's attorney's office. I think he completed that on June 16th. So he completed that about a week before this last incident. And there was also an allegation that some guys had brandished a handgun out to one of Cook's neighbors, but the neighbor told outside the lines, I believe it was Paula Levine, that she didn't think Cook owned the gun.
Now, Mark, the perception around the country is going to be that Jimbo has kind of lost control. If you go back to the Jameis, then you had the DeAndre Johnson situation. Now you have Dalvin Cook. Is Jimbo going to have to answer for this?
I think they're going to have to do something to kind of get it under control. I've talked to Willie Meggs several times over the last couple of days. Guys, we've known about this since about Tuesday. I got a tip early in the week that there was a separate incident. I talked to the witness. There's a 28-year-old man who was a witness, Justin Rossi. I talked to him earlier in the week, and we decided to wait and see what Meggs did with it. We thought out of fairness that if a warrant wasn't issued for his arrest, that we might not run the story. But, Meggs has told me since the DeAndre Johnson incident, and once he was dismissed from the team, he said he's talked to several administrators at Florida State, and he feels like the new president there, Johnny Thrasher, has had it up to his eyeballs, I think was his quote, in terms of problems with FSU football. So, they've been very defensive the last couple of years about the treatment from the media, but, when the incidents keep happening, at some point you got to look in the mirror and say, what are we doing wrong?
Mark Schlabach of ESPN.com joining us right now, and you're breaking the story of Dalvin Cook. There is going to be a warrant out for his arrest down in Tallahassee. I'm going to go ahead and read from your story here just a second ago, and it says, quote, this is about, said the woman, I told him that I had a boyfriend and wasn't interested. The woman said the argument became heated, and then Cook punched her in the face several times. Her friend ran to a nearby Tallahassee police car, which wasn't occupied, so the woman called 911. Quote, they kept telling me they were football players, the woman said. They kept telling me to Google them. They told me they were football players and that they could buy me in 2 years. Mark, how much of this and what transpired down in Tallahassee and the Jameis Winston issue continues to will the Tallahassee Police Department, they've got to handle this in a different way than they've handled previous cases, wouldn't you think?
I think they did, I think they did some pretty good police work on these last couple of cases, involving DeAndre Johnson and Dalvin Cook. They've been criticized mightily for being too cozy with the athletics department. And we saw with the DeAndre Johnson case that nobody inside Florida State's athletics department had seen the video from the bar until it was released by the state attorney's office on Monday. And in this case, I don't think there was, in this case, I know that there was a Tallahassee police officer who went on the Florida State campus to find Dalvin Cook and asking questions about this alleged incident. And he was able to do that. So, keep in mind in this case, guys, the big difference between this one and the DeAndre Johnson case is there isn't video. This occurred outside of Clyde's and Costello's, which is a popular bar in downtown Tallahassee. There were no cameras outside. I've been told there is no video footage, but the woman did provide Willie Meggs, the state attorney, with photos of her injury. She told me a couple of days ago that her bottom lip was split and her nose was sore. And she met with two TPD investigators on July 1st, I believe last Wednesday, and picked Dalvin Cook out of a photo lineup.
How likely, Mark, if Jimbo's not able to do something, is the ACC likely to get involved? Because they don't want the whole image of the conference going bad just because Florida State keeps getting in trouble.
Yeah, Booger, I don't think, I don't think Johnson, I'm sure there's been some conversations behind the scenes, but, I think most conferences, unless it involves NCAA penalties or NCAA violations, most of the conferences allow each institution to handle their own business. Certainly the image thing is probably something that John Swofford's worried about, but I think he'll let Florida State handle it for the most part.
And how do they handle it, Mark? Have we seen anything from Jimbo or FSU within the last, I want to say, hours since this has broken and you put out this story of a dismissal or a suspension for Dalvin Cook at FSU?
Like I said earlier, I talked to Stan Wilcox, their AD, a little while ago. I talked to him yesterday as well. Yesterday, I guess it was Wednesday night was the first time I'd had any contact with anybody at FSU about this incident. They were completely unaware of it on Wednesday. I talked to him yesterday. That's when we made the decision to hold the story until the state attorney decided what to do. I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously, a precedent has been set with the DeAndre Johnson deal. Again, the big difference between that one and this one is there's video, and he is. Keep in mind, he like Johnson, Dalvin Cook is charged with a misdemeanor. And as far as I know, Florida State's athletic department policy only stipulates that a student athlete is suspended or dismissed, when it's a felony. So, obviously, domestic violence and assault to women is a hot button issue right now. So I don't know how to treat it. I just don't want to guess to what Florida State's going to do.
He's ESPN senior writer Mark Schlabach on the story. Dalvin Cook, a state's attorney office in Tallahassee, will issue a warrant for the arrest of that Florida State running back, Dalvin Cook. Mark Schlabach, we appreciate you jumping on and short notice here on the Paul Finebaum Show.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
You got it. Boog, it's amazing to me. Listen, there's 15 different things that are amazing about this story and where it happens, but we also saw this rear its head in the NFL as well, too, and it has everything to do with whether or not there is video of the incident. I'll explain why when Booger and Burns returns next on the Paul Finebaum Show. Welcome back to the Paul Finebaum Show. Booger and Burns in yet once again for the king of Sports Talk Radio, Paul Finebaum, who's enjoying a little vacation, recharging his batteries before we get kicked off at SEC Media Days on Monday. Peter Burns, SEC Network. He is Booger McFarland, studio analyst. And Booger, every time we have a show kind of planned the last couple of days, has been derailed right off the bat with something going on. That something is Dalvin Cook of FSU. He's the latest Florida State Seminole to run in a little bit issues with the law, as we just had Mark Schlabach tell us the story break that state attorney seeks the arrest of FSU's Dalvin Cook on battery charges. So we'll continue to follow that story. And one of the other things that we were talking about yesterday in today is celebrating the life of Kenny Stabler, and one of the legends not only of the SEC but just football in general. And so we bring in a legend here on the Paul Finebaum Show to talk about it. Phyllis from Moga, thanks for joining. Booger and Burns filling in for Paul Finebaum.
Hello, guys. You're doing an awfully good job today. It's really good listening to you. I just had to call in. I want to send my condolences to Ken Stabler's family, his friends, and everybody that knew and loved him. I used to watch Ken Stabler. I was a child, but I watched Ken Stabler with my brothers and my daddy, and I remember every bit of the passion he brought to my family. He was such a great player. He was one of the heroes of Alabama football. No one can take that away from him. And how he never got into the Hall of Fame, I will never, ever know or believe it. John Forney was cheated out of that. He died, and then he was put into the Hall of Fame. What's up with that? But getting back to Ken Stabler, he was one of the persons that really started the deepest passion in my family for Alabama football. He and Namath. But as far as my family was concerned, it was always Stabler. 3 days ago, I had my Ken Stabler jersey on, and I wore it with pride, and I didn't know this was coming. And I am so sorry because I have respected him. I have loved him all my life. And I watched him on that field. It's not something I can just talk about because I read it in the record books. I watched him play on that field, and he was dynamic. And he was a kind, good, loving man. And he deserves all the accolades in the world. Ken Stabler, rest in peace, my buddy, my friend. You are loved, you are respected, and I promise you, you will never, ever be forgotten. That is a promise. And guys, I appreciate you giving me the time to say that, because that was what was in my heart, and I had to say it, and I am really hurt by his passing. And please, for people called him a rebel. People says he did things they didn't like. So that weighed heavy on his fame and his personality. Well, people, throw that first stone. Throw that first stone. He did what he did, and that's between him and his maker, not you. So if you have anything unkind to say about his past, crawl under your porch and grab you a stone and throw it. Thank you so much, guys, for letting me vent. I really do appreciate it. God bless you, and bye-bye.
Phyllis, thank you for the phone call. But I think that's one of the things that you and I have gotten. We've always kind of known the passion for SEC fans, but to hear it in Phyllis and to hear just the outpouring, is that Stabler just brought a different. Stabler just meant more to SEC fans than just being a quarterback, right?
Well, you have to understand that, football in the South meant a whole lot more than just a sport. It was a whole lot more than just a game. And when you get a guy that the fans can relate to, often football players and athletes in general, Peter, are looked at as untouchable. I can see you, but I can never relate to you. Well, Ken Stabler was a little different. You can relate to him, because you could see him having, going to a party and hanging out and then showing up for practice the next day and getting his work done. Because you can relate to that, because now I know I can reach out and touch him. I could see myself doing that. And when a fan can relate to a player that way, they feel an emotional connection to him. And so that's why he's loved so much in the South, is because people can relate to him. And the same way out in Oakland, you can relate to a guy that puts his heart and puts his passion and his emotion on the field. And when fans can do that, man, you hear the emotion and feels his voice. And I guarantee you, there are thousands that feel that way.
Thousands. There's zero doubt. Another man that probably feels that way. Man, thanks for joining Booger and Burns, filling in for Paul Finebaum.
Hey guys, how's it going?
What's up, bud?
You gotta appreciate a call from Phyllis like that, because see, that's pure passion. That's not posing like a couple guys coming up in here yesterday. That's passion, and that's not pretending. And you know what? I'm an Auburn fan, always have. But I tell you what, roll damn tide to the memory of Kenny Stabler and his fans, because for about 3.5 hours we're all enemies on a Saturday, but we're all family. And if Kenny Stabler wasn't one of your favorite football players, then you probably don't know football. And I was telling some guys today, I happen to have grown up in the best part of the music world and the college football world in the history of both. And it's just been an honor to sit back and watch all the innovative things that have taken place in both fields. And this show, here it is, something blowing up bigger than it's ever been in the history of radio. And no, but that's pure passion, and that's why I can appreciate people like Phyllis, unlike legends and Jim from Tuscaloosa's, and posers like that. They don't really know what they're talking about, but they will take a finger and call a guy a floater. But I didn't sell T-shirts to a bunch of people on the internet and not deliver them. I did not go to a local hamburger joint and say I'm gonna talk about you, and then strong arm the guy, try to get some payment out of the guy because he's doing advertising. I didn't, if I come on here and talk about something, I can get a point across in one phone call, Jim. I don't have to call 3 or 4 times to retaliate because I can't wait till Monday. But guys, you have knocked it out of the fence this week. You two guys have been outstanding. And if there was ever another program to come from the SEC network that's kind of like Paul's show, you guys ought to be hosting it because you stimulate the callers, you have points, and I think you have good conversation. And you know what? Like I told the senior writer the other day, why would you ask Jimbo Fisher anything anymore? You guys have a great weekend.
All right, man. We appreciate it, my friend. I mean, that's it's just I think we're all kind of caught up in that a little emotional part right now, And I mean, and it continues as we continue to have the legend here, Booger and Burns filling in for Paul Finebaum on the Kenny Stabler passing and all the breaking news, and the big Swagoo himself, one of Paul Finebaum's best friends, the dynamic duo. Swagoo, how you doing today, buddy?
What's good, fellas? I turned on SEC Network. I guess they didn't want to put Bug's Ugly Mug on TV today.
I knew that was coming.
Hey, and here I am. Hey, it's Swagoo. Here I am. I got I'm in makeup, but we're only doing radio today. I mean, what's going on?
Well, PB, you know all about swag, though. I done took you to swag school, and you got to be ready and prepared at all times. So it's all good that you got makeup on and it's just radio. People can feel it through the airwaves.
Swagoo, a quick thought, man, on Kenny Stabler, man, and obviously I'm sure you heard Phyllis and her emotional testimony just there. Your thoughts on Stabler?
First of all, a member of just football in general. I sent out a tweet yesterday saying all the football suffered a loss, and Ken Stabler being an Alabama guy, SEC guy, and being one of probably the greatest quarterback in Oakland Raider history, it's a huge loss. And, and you'll see all type of tributes go on, and you'll see people talk about his legacy. And he carried the torch well for the SEC. I didn't really know him personally. I knew of him, and I had heard about the snake from old SEC heads that would always talk about how great football was back then. But I know it's a huge loss. I know a lot of people are hurting about it, and I know you guys did the same, but just sending his family our prayers is always a tough time when you lose someone.
Marcus, isn't that the case here, though? And I'd say this more so about this great conference than maybe any other kind of collection of teams or collection of sporting entities, is that around this conference, there are people that will hate you every single day because you wear a certain jersey. But at the same time, there's an odd fraternity that at the same time they love you too because you're part of this SEC.
Absolutely. And, that's a great point, Peter, because I learned that more than anything traveling around last year with SEC Nations is that it is a fraternity per se. I think. And it's because everybody understands what it means to represent the Southeastern Conference, and everybody understands that this is us. I think more than anything, football is a fabric of our culture down here, and you try to explain that to people and help them understand what it means to the folks down south. It is a part of living as much as getting up and going to work every day. So it's different. It's a different approach to it. And when you lose players and when you lose some of their history, because Ken Stabler is a part of the tradition of the SEC. And when you lose that, everybody feels it because he was a representation of everybody that represents the Southeastern Conference in football, and not only in football, but our culture and what we grow up doing as young folks and what we grow up watching as young folks and adults in that part of the region. So, yeah, it's felt by everyone. I think everybody hurts when things like this happen. And then everybody uses this time to reflect and remember, you know, why this conference is so great and how many great people have graced these campuses and these universities and these cameras and football fields throughout the Southeastern Conference.
Swagoo, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. Dalvin Cook, Florida State running back, there's been a warrant issued for his arrest. Basically, there's an accusation that he basically just let the fist go on a woman. And this is the second instance in as many days that Florida State has had. You got a daughter, I have a daughter. How do you feel when you see a guy, especially a young guy, another Florida State guy, that's in this situation?
Oh, man, but you know, me and you have these talks.
Right.
And we're not on radio. And for me, you know, you almost get, I'm beginning to be desensitized to it, but I'm beginning to think, look, whenever something like this happens, just strip everything away from them and let them rebuild somewhere else and let them learn that these actions won't be tolerated. Because, you know, you get to a point where you talk about things and you try to feel your way around it. And I made a comment about the quarterback with the incident earlier this week. And I think you can look at that film and tell that it was both parties in that situation. But what's wrong with walking away? And the thing about it is, when are these guys going to realize, and boy, we've had this conversation over dinner before, you build your whole life from pee-wee football to middle school to high school, and these guys have an opportunity to play in college, and a 10-second or a split decision takes all of that away from you. And what they don't realize is, no matter how you come back from this situation, that videotape or that allegation or whatever the situation is when it comes full circle, that's always out there for people to judge you by. And, you know, we don't like to judge, but people are judgmental. That's what they do. So when you have things like that attached to your name, people have a tendency to steer away from you. They have to learn, but I'm getting to the point now where I'm desensitizing from it, and people, they just have to make examples out of them.
And Marcus, it's a scary thing. He is Marcus Spears. He is the big swagoo. We'll hear more from him from SEC Media Days, and we'll get more from that coming up right after the break. It's Booger and Burns in on the Paul Finebaum Show.
Hi, I'm Joe.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt, frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.